Okay. It is January 7th of 2023 at 4:07 a.m. in the morning. Now, I want to do something different here, okay? And it might get me a strike. Alright. In the fact that we're going to listen to another video, right, that's on BitChute talking about stuff. And as they're talking, I'll stop, right, and I'll give you my thought on it, okay? So, with that said, because YouTube staff and their bosses, whoever they may be, don't like some of these people that I'm listening to, and have basically banned them from YouTube. Right? And we already know they got Amari on lockdown with his voice. So, for all I know, people, my video could just poof, be gone. Nothing moves except it. Because Amari's in the background being happy. Yeah. Yeah. What is the difference with him giggling and talking and, oh, you should have heard him scream yesterday. And of course I just let him scream because, he's coming up with new sounds, eh? And of course I laid down and then he, started up with his antics, eh? And he just got louder and louder and then, because I sing to him all the time, people. You have to remember that, right? So he's screaming and I'm like, oh, okay, you're singing now. Oh boy, are you ever singing? Right? And giggling and laughing and whatever he does. And, I can do a video with him doing that in the background and my comment section on YouTube doesn't get shut down. Put the camera facing that way, go tickle him, call him my smelly belly, and next thing you know, they're putting no comment on there. Why? I still don't get it. I'm still so mad that I don't even want to put this up on YouTube. But I'm a YouTuber. So what? Because I'm going to talk about something that YouTube staff doesn't like? Or they'll find something that they quote-unquote don't like? Or is it because Amari's making noise in the background? What is the difference if I get up, go to him, start tickling him, and call him my smelly belly? And that his Nana loves him no matter what? Huh? And that it's not his fault? Huh? So that Nana can stay strong? Huh? And not drop the ball? You understand? Anyway. So yeah, I might get a strike for this video. Whatever. I'll tell you who we're listening to after I'm done doing what I'm doing here. It's better than squawk, 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 right? I mean, who needs, you can only handle so much squawk, 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 squawk. I'm being theatrical, people. At 4 o'clock in the freaking morning. Wondering if I'm going to get a YouTube strike. Because I happen to say something that somebody on that end doesn't like. Because they don't like these people any more than they like my grandson. They're using my grandson as a tool. A tool to manipulate my channel. A tool to manipulate my emotions. A tool to manipulate my household. You think that's funny, huh? A tool to empower people with false senses of authority so that they can come into my life and try and put their thumb on me so that I can never be successful at anything. Anything. Because for whatever reason, they're somehow more superior because they're in a position of employment to a government agency. Stay quiet, Amari. You're getting me into trouble. Seriously, man. Stop it. You think he's going to listen to me? Heck no. Anyway, obviously this makes me nervous, as if I can stand the stress of another strike. Right? I post these videos up on BitChute. Somebody came in and made a comment saying that who needs enemies when you're your worst enemy yourself? And I'm like, okay, don't just take it as constructive criticism. You know, this person is trying to make you fully aware of this situation that's going on YouTube. And yeah, they're my enemy, people. They've been my enemy from the moment my son signed me up with the trademark and wanted me to use YouTube as a means to promote the foundation in a positive way. But it was YouTube and their staff that came out on the wrong foot and have been playing with my life for as long as I've been signed up with that company. Okay? And what they did to Amari, they didn't do it to me. They did it to Amari because I know for a fact if comments would have been allowed, Tammy would have came in and said, oh, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Lucy would have came in and said, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. April would have came in and said, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so on and so on. What? Because there wasn't 10,000 of us to say, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Somehow it became less insignificant because there was maybe just 5 that want to come in and say, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. To whereas YouTube staff made it so that nothing could be said for the purpose of mindfuckery and nothing more or less. Amari is on an infantile level who will never have a voice except for those who advocate for him. The older they get, the worse it gets for them who are disabled. Because for whatever reason, people lose interest in adults, especially those who are injured, infirm, ill, or mentally ill. Or in Amari's case, born disabled. Okay? YouTube does not speak for my grandson, and nor does YouTube protect my family. Let's get that straight. Otherwise, if that wasn't true, I wouldn't be so defensive. Yeah, you're gonna get me into trouble. Stay quiet. You're not allowed to laugh and giggle and have fun. Have your nana call you a smelly belly. Yeah. Have you tell me that he loves me. Tammy would have picked up on that like that. Because Tammy works with children and adults with cerebral palsy. So she knows. She knows the milestones when they come. And clearly my grandson knows how to say I love you because you heard it in that video. And he knows how to go, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're just so cute. You're listening to me. Anyway, let's get on with this video. If I get a strike, people, I get a strike, okay? Fuck YouTube and fuck YouTube stuff. I'm squatting. I'm a squatter now. You're gonna have to run me out. Okay, let's listen for a bit.
And,
I gotta turn it up.
Awakening starting, I think.
I think what's alarming is the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, the Rothschilds, the United Nations, UN Agenda 2030, the mainstream horror media, which has no credibility and is in the pocket of these same people. They continue to push. They are unrelenting in the push towards their New World Order and essentially their Hunger Games vision for the world. So climate lockdowns on the horizon. Our friend Fire Medic 8 posted this. Let's watch this and we'll talk about it.
The state's war on the public continues apace. Oxfordshire County Council have approved plans to lock residents into one of 6 zones to save the planet from global warming, or that's how they frame it.
All right, we're going to pause it there. I'm coming back to you. So that's how they frame it. By the way, there's a move to do the same thing.
Okay. 2 things came to my mind. First, I thought about the bike paths that the city of Surrey is building in. They're just building them in. I don't know who's using them, but they're building them in. The second thing is, with that thought, I went on to, it's on the island. I think it's in Duncan. That's where John's been as well. John was born in Port Alberni, but I think he spent some time living in Duncan. Anyway, they, had their lockdowns and everything else and blah, and then because of the lockdowns, towers went up. Cell towers, some kind of towers, maybe 5G towers, I don't know, just towers anyway, were put up in Duncan. And from the time that happened, the people that live in that area that are proactive, right, they brought it to the attention that birds, all the birds left, there's no insects, right? But because it's under that agenda, the corporation that promotes that stuff came in with a big sign promoting, I guess it's Duncan, I'm pretty sure it's Duncan, this I guess smart city to some degree agenda as a role model for the rest of Canada. Now, I don't have time to go look for that article because I'm not quite sure what I'm looking for outside of what I've seen. What is that medical misinformation that in Duncan, towers went up, that the city council is saying, no, it's not scaring away the birds? Okay, whatever. It could be as simple as Amari making noise in the background, people. That's how ambiguous YouTube is. And they won't tell you why they... or try and shut you up. Like, how dare they shut up my grandson? Seriously, as they allow squawk, 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 defaming children. Just so that they can get their stupid rewards on super stickers. And then, on that last video or so that I uploaded, somebody else came on BitChute and said that it's the Jews who run YouTube, basically. Or corporations like YouTube. And I don't think about Jews. I don't think about Jews any more than I think about Ukrainians, that I think about Russians, that I think about Chinese or Punjabis or freaking Hindus or whatever. Muslims, Syrians, Afghanistans, Iranians. They're all Muslims, but each one has their own book. Right. So, oh my God, just stay focused. Just stay focused.
In Australia, Maria Z's been reporting about that. I talked to her recently. And the other thing I would say is that there's a move toward what they're calling 15-minute cities.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what that city in Duncan is supposed to represent. The first one in all of Canada. as the role model on how to expand on being a smart city, as the city of Surrey is building in bike paths without really explaining why, outside of what, it's the green thing to do.
You will go no further than 15 minutes from where you live.
As if I'm going to get up on a bike. Yeah, okay.
To do your work, to do your workouts, to find your entertainment, to live a life as they lock down the planet in really,
Listen. To live a life, just to run around in your local area. Okay, now this is from a poor person's perspective, okay? When I had my car on the road and a lot more freedom, I could go from shop to shop to shop to look for the best deals because, I'm always on the hunt for food. Blah, 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 right? My 15-minute radius was probably no more than an hour radius when I did the circle from store to store to store to store to store. So that system in itself, for the majority of people, especially those below a certain income level, is already kind of locked in. The poorer you get, the smaller your circumference is in terms of how far you can go. Because once you lose your car, you're pretty much on foot, unless, of course, you're on a bike. So for the poorest of the poor, like back in the day when they had everybody up by the strip, they started fencing people off. Literally, they took over property and then started fencing out the property to keep the people off the property. Got them on the road, sleeping in tents, and then they came in with their FEMA. What do you call those things? Modules, and stack and pack those little modules, and then took some of those people in those tents and put them into those modules to clean up the street after they cleaned up the neighborhood and kind of flushed them all into the street. Okay, there was a process around that. Plus, there was a die-off in 2015 when they brought in the Surrey flu that was killing off like 40 homeless people at a time because of the flu. That is the one that got into my house and gave Uncle John what he got, so he ended up being medically kidnapped, so on and so on. So, you right? Okay. So, the smart cities are already, in my opinion, being implemented without even people in general aware of. However, as I listen to this, the thing I think about is, okay, well, it's already in place. It's been in place for a long time. Depending on your economical resources, you're either going to get stuck down to a 2-block city radius in terms of the homeless living in a tent on the strip. They can go 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 blocks. Other than that, they're not going all the way down the road. Whereas with a car, with me, within my limited income, I could go all the way down the road. But that doesn't mean I can cross over the bridge and go do my shopping and just carry on, right? I myself, as a poor person with, reasonable resources in relation to credit cards and those kind of things, I had the freedom to go a little further. But ultimately it was my income that kept me confined to my local area. And I really didn't have a choice of where I shopped outside of the few places that I would go from spot to spot to spot to spot within that radius looking for those deals in terms of groceries and that type of stuff, right? So what they're talking about really is nothing new because it's already been here. But what they're doing now is they're bringing it, I guess you can say they're chipping away at that middle class, and they're making them behave like I've had to behave in terms of being lower on the income scale, right? Now, for some people, I'm going to get back to this in a second. For some people, which makes me think, right? Which makes me think about, like, we'll just say the Punjabi community. Because British Columbia, Canada has a really strong, deep-rooted Punjabi community. And Punjabis like to be with Punjabis. Same is true for Asian people from China and places like that. If you go into Richmond, that's all you're going to see is Chinese and Korean and whatever and whatever and whatever. A lot of them speak Cantonese. Right? So anyone that speaks Cantonese is going to go move to Richmond. Anyone that speaks Punjabi is going to move basically to Surrey, although the Punjabis have spread out right across the whole province, okay? But when you take it directly to their community, compared to, we'll say, my community, because I'm like, I see these bike paths, I know what's going on, right? I know how the property development improves the neighborhood at the expense of destroying whole families as government workers come in and clean up on the scraps and wheel and deal in the underground economy with body parts that nobody wants. Okay? I know how it works, people. So, in my community where it's mainly rental houses that are all slated to be tore down to build buildings that may or may not be sold or rented out, that one, 133 suites, has no more than maybe 5 to 10 tenants out of 133 suites. So 10 suites are full out of 133, and that thing's been done for almost 2 years. And it has a drainage problem in their basement where they have to use a sump pump, which floods the water this way and then into my basement if I'm not careful. Including my neighbor's yard. They flood her yard where the trees drop because of root rot from all the water. And her shed floods out all the time because of what they did over here. But that's property development. Yeah. And all these other little houses, the whole block, and the block after that, and the block after that, are all slated to be tore down to be building these buildings. Well, you go further on down that way, which makes me want to have somebody take me for a ride, and we'll just do a spot check on the different districts in Surrey and point out exactly what I'm saying so people can see it visually and understand that if you go down, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes that way or 40 minutes that way, what you're going to find is Little India. Okay? You're going to find Little India in the pocket of, it's a pocket. It's just a pocket of the greater community. But when you bring it to these so-called quote-unquote smart cities, right, now you can visually see you've got Little India over here going within its 15-minute, 1 hour, right? Or with me doing over here, doing what I do, because I'm not shopping in Little India. I don't live in Little India, so I'm not shopping per se, quote unquote, in Little India, right? Because I'm over here. And when you, like, from a perspective of wealth, whatever they've got going over there, they're happy with and they're comfortable with, and they've got their peacocks running around, squawking, squawk, 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 squawk. Right? Because they do. They like peacocks, and they let the peacocks run wild out there, right? Whereas you come out here, they're killing everything. They're killing off the trees, right? Getting rid of the raccoons, just birds, because there's no trees, nothing to eat, so they can build in buildings that leak and may or may not be sold or rented. And even if they were to rent them, I mean, it's just a matter of time before those buildings within 50 years will become the next slums. Whereas Little India is still Little India because it's a different community. So the government with their smart cities are actually creating gated communities, insulated communities that is obviously being propped up by quote-unquote organized religion in partnership with corrupt governments. Okay? And I know that because I've already kind of lived it within my income, boxed into high debt, right? And even when I had a chance to get out of it, was pulled out from underneath my feet. And not only was it pulled out from underneath my feet, but it was also pulled out from underneath my family's feet, so much so that 2 of them lost their lives just to maintain on keeping me locked into that manufactured poverty right? Where, you know, I am still left paying CIBC Bank's credit card, to which should have been paid off within 2 years. They took John in 2015. I said, John, before that, I said, look, I got the bills down to 3 bills. Everything else I've paid off. We're good to go. Let's just focus on these last 2 bills, the big ones, right? The third one wasn't so bad, right? Because I don't want to get left stuck with the bills, right? You know, it's going to be hard on me if you go die, people, right? So I think, you know, the wise thing for us to do would be start focusing on it. And he said, yes, that's what we're going to do. But the thing is, he got medically kidnapped. He got robbed. And my family got targeted to shut us up as to what they did to him. And that's done through government and their employees, mixed in a bit with that, I guess you could say, Catholic religion, right? Well, the Punjabis are just standing back looking, capitalizing off of the body parts as they come in, and then going back to their little India gated community where they're quite happy and comfortable to be, right? They're happy to be there. That's where they want to be. So, of course, they're going to try and support what the government is doing to ensure that they can keep what they have. Even if it means chopping down all the trees, chopping down all the houses, and getting rid of all the people as they bring in other people that are dumb, blind, and desperate to mold them into whatever it is that they want them to be to eventually harvest them. Because it's a cycle. So when these guys talk, I guess you could say in abstract, and kind of keep it, well, who's culpable for this? Who's responsible for this? Oh, we know at some level it's the government. Yeah, but it's more than just the government. It's the organized religion within the community, within the district, within the jurisdiction, within the county, within the territory, as in the Northwest Territories in Canada. Okay. If you're looking for corruption in the Northwest Territories, all you have to do is go look to the religion that's out there, and you'll find the corruption, okay? Let me go check on him. What? I heard you say Nana. What do you want? What did you do? What did you do? Keep yourself locked in here? Quiet, you're gonna get your Nana into trouble. No, you're gonna get Nana into trouble. Nana doesn't like getting into trouble. It's too early in the morning to play. It's too early. I don't want you to play. Not now, I'll be quiet. What are you doing? You're supposed to be sleeping. Amari! What are you doing? As your mother would say. You're supposed to be sleeping. Amari! What are you doing? As your mother would say. You're supposed to be sleeping. As your mother would say. Amari! What are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah! What are you doing? Amari! What are you doing? Making all this noise. You're getting Nana into trouble. No. You're getting Nana into trouble. Yeah. There. Yeah, you just never know what you're gonna get on my video. Anyway, okay. So, in a nutshell, smart cities are already being implemented through city councils without the general public even knowing about it. And if they do, then many of them are in support of the process, because what it does is it builds in those gated communities for those that live a certain way, that, you know, right? Okay. That's just human nature, right? But at the same time, though, you know, it's destructive, because you get locked into that manufactured poverty. And, you know, as I can only use what I know that's available to me in terms of, you know, like the Punjabis, for example, they have their community. They're well established. They got, you know, deep roots, and they're wealthy as a collective, and, you know, they're proactive with their culture in order for, you know, strongest of the fittest, that type of thing. In terms of smart cities, in the way these guys are talking about it, to the cause and effect in terms of the full ramifications after it's all said and done and fully implemented, how restricted are the Punjabis as a collective? Or, you know, like, I just like we have a two-tiered system within our healthcare system and educational system and justice system, well, we're going to have the same thing with those smart cities, because, you know, if the Punjabis want to go to India, trust me, they're going to go to India, okay? Right? They're already going to India. Half of my landlady's family is all taken off out of BC because of the holidays. Many of them went to India. So, you know, they're not going to want to give up those rights. So, for me to say that they're fully supportive 100% of what the government is doing, because for them, it benefits them, because they don't mind living in a gated community, per se, quote unquote, right? But to what degree, and, you know, are they that naive to think that whatever is going on won't affect them? It's just, it might take a little longer. Okay, they don't have to worry about me flying off anywhere, people. I'm locked into that manufactured poverty, well below the poverty line. Okay? With a high debt load. Okay? So with that, I'm not going anywhere. But whereas my landlady and her family, they're a little bit more up here, but they're still locked in within whatever their income level is. So I'd put them at maybe middle class. They're certainly not rich. They wouldn't mind being rich, but at the end of the day, they're at a middle class that's feeling the effects of what our governments are doing as individuals, right? As individuals running individual households with individual families. So right there, there's that disconnect, but they're so inclined to go with the collective, in terms of so-and-so says this, so therefore we all must follow, you know, because of that innate need to survive as a race and to be strong, right? I wouldn't say necessarily the dominant, but yeah, most definitely the dominant, but to be on the fair side, we'll just say strong, right? You know, like, do they not think that they're not going to be affected by the long-term implementation of these cities, because they just think they will always have the right to get into an airplane and fly off to India or wherever else they want to go, while everybody else can't, because of what they're talking about here as our government slowly, but because once they get you on a welfare check, they don't call them welfare checks here, they call them CCIs or something, digital currency, right? which is a form of a welfare check. Oh, geez, I might have to do a second video on this because I'm talking too much here. But, you right? I've heard two things in the States when it relates to employment. One, there's a lot of employment positions open, but nobody wants to work. And there's something like 10 million employment positions open where nobody wants to fill the job. But yet on the same time, you've got companies like Amazon and all these other companies laying off 10,000 pop at a time, which is right. And then I've seen, right, where, or heard, read, whatever, right, and more than once, that people are putting in applications for jobs, but nobody's calling back. But the sign still stays out. And if that's the case, then that's government giving companies the incentive to pay their bills without having to do the service. Okay? That's what's happening out here with the doctors, doctor offices. When they put everybody on lockdown, they made sure that the doctor's offices and the clinics and those kind of things left their lights open. Lights on. Could maintain on their expenses. Well, they basically curtailed the public from having access to health care. That's how I fell through the cracks. Because nobody would see me. Right? Because they either weren't answering their phone, or they weren't taking new patients, or I wouldn't wear a mask, or they just didn't call back. Because ultimately the government was giving them money to pay for their hydro, to pay for their phone, to pay for their staff, to pay, but not to see patients. So, when I hear there's 10,000 positions open but nobody wants to work, I honestly, people, I don't believe that. I don't believe that there's that amount of Americans that just want to sit there and wait for a welfare check. I just don't. Because this digital ID currency or whatever would be no different than a welfare check. And once you're on a welfare check, you're at the mercy of those that can, at any moment, whether you have dependent children or not. And then they expect you, through all that kerfuffle, once they cut you off, to go out and figure out how to defend yourself against them to get your rights back, as your family is falling apart and imploding around you. Okay? So I don't know how the Punjabis fit in on that one. You know, because they have a lot of businesses and stuff like that, right? You know, they have a lot of franchise and they own a lot of property. And, you know, that's why I always go back to that organized religion. Like, how is it that they can benefit from all this mayhem while families like mine get completely decimated over a period of time? And we can't just blame it on poverty. And if it's true with what these people are saying in terms of the government trying to make it a broad sweep, it's not just the poorest of the poor or those below a certain income level that will be affected with these smart cities, but it's also going to, you know, put its tentacles into the middle class and the wealthy and wipe them out too. But, you know, like, are the Punjabis even aware of that? And if so, what are their backup plan to prevent it from happening? Do they think it's not going to happen to them, and that's why they just go on and live their lives and don't really stand up and say no? Or what, you know? Okay? I mean, ultimately, I'm not going to have to worry about smart cities too much here because I'm not going to be around that much longer. But I'd hate to see what it's going to be like in 15, 20, 30 years from now, okay? And, like, I am concerned for my kids and my grandkids, especially knowing what I know, all right? Like, my son is a hard-working man. He climbs up in trees 200, 250 feet, sometimes 300 feet high. And he cuts them down. And he swings in the balance of gravity. And he always worries about, well, maybe he's climbing a dead tree. He just can't tell until it snaps. Then you know. But by then it's too late. You know, so it's like my son going off to war every day, you know, or going off to be a police officer and gives up his life because, you know, he was trying to do something good in society or whatever it may be, right? You know, because it's just going to take that one tree to take my son out, okay? Or what? Something like that. And these things...
Telling you, man, what's coming is what they've showed us.
And these things, these trees, when they want, like, do certain... Because there's different ways to cut down trees, right? And they run ropes because they have to take it down in increments. And if one of those ropes snap, whew, his boss lost his thumb because of that. But his boss loves my son. Oh yeah. He got real lucky when he got my son, and he trained him good. And my son is a fine, fine, fine young man. And strong, and buffed, and a good cook. Oh yeah. So, you know, I mean, what's going to happen when they say, sorry son, you can't go to work no more? Nope. Not unless we book you in. You think he's going to want to settle with a welfare check? Yeah, okay. I don't think so. That's not in his DNA. Okay, neither from his father's side or neither from me. But these guys are talking about that's how global government is going to get control of the global population. To which I wonder how much the Punjabis, being that that's mainly my community, is involved in that process, as they think they're going to come out of it unscathed because they're comfortable to live in their smart city that they have right now, and will sacrifice other things in order to be able to keep what they have, with the expectations that they can keep building it for themselves. Because we already know that the government operates for itself in the end, ultimately. It's who the government partners up with to facilitate the crime that we need to be thinking about. Right? You got quiet. See, that's when I get nervous.
Us in these movies, and it's essentially the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
The Hunger Games. The Punjabis aren't hungry. Come out into my community, people are hungry.
This is another nightmare vision of dystopia coming true. Oxford County Council have declared to fight climate change, obviously. I think they put Oxford, or the area around Oxford, into 6 districts. And again, that reminds me straight out of Hunger Games. And they're just essentially...
But we already have that. This is what I'm trying to tell you.
Saying you can only travel 100 days per year, and you've got to stick to these districts.
I couldn't even travel out of the house 100 days a year. It would be exhausting.
Yeah. This is the control grid coming down at a low.
But for others, it makes sense.
On the local level.
In terms of they need to travel more than 100 times out of the house in a year. Especially those that go to work, like my son.
It's not just social media now and what you can and can't say. It's now you won't go out of a zone we don't want you to. And pretty soon with the new currency, it'll be you won't buy what we don't want you to.
Well, now that's just it. You hit the nail on the head. Because as we look at this, it makes 0 sense in the economy as it currently works that you could only leave your zone for a maximum time of 100 days per year. What if you work 40 miles away from where you live? A lot of people work 20 miles away from
My son can work anywhere in this province doing what he does.
where they live. They don't want you owning a car, a gasoline-powered car. They don't want you going to that job. They want you on universal basic income, living like a slave on their plantation for the rest of time. So what they're outlining here,
And that's true because they don't help you get off of welfare. You see, that's the thing. They find ways to keep you dependent, right? They make it so that you can't make money, right? Or in some instances, they'll just completely cut you off, even if it's illegal, just to keep you poor. And then when you do come back, you're broken.
makes no sense unless they bring down
And then you get old and blind, and then you really become dependent.
the economy with their Great Reset. They want to cause a crash, and they've said it. Klaus Schwab has said it. And then we read
Yeah, but you see, when I hear that, I always go back to the default of, well, do the Punjabis think like that? They don't seem to think like this, people. I don't see them... Okay, I know my landlady is feeling the loss on the sale of her house only because of what's going on in the community, well, in the economy, I should say. If she would have sold this house, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, she would have had a better chance of selling it then at $2 million than versus trying to sell what she's been trying to sell for the last year at $3 million and then having to drop it down to 2.5 and still nobody's buying. Okay? But you see all these property owners out here, they're all different, right? They all got signs up because they're waiting for the big fish to come in to build in another building and push out everybody from their houses into a no man's land. As they're building in their digital currency through the immigration population. Because when the immigrants come, they're completely dependent on whatever it is that the governments give them, and that's all digital. But the commerce around that in terms of house sales and, building of buildings and trafficking of people and all this other stuff, that's all being done within that gated community over there, which is in its own right a smart city.
build. There's no going back, right? Remember they said that? There's no
Yep.
going back. This is the new. And it is the new world order. That's the new, man.
Yeah, it's build back better, but better for whom? Because them telling me what I can and can't buy, how many coffees I can drink, whether I can have red meat, and whether I can go within 20 miles.
So that needs to be determined. Does that mean that everybody gets treated like that, or only some people who live in certain geographical areas? Okay, because usually the rich get what the rich want, right? Doesn't matter what the rules are, okay? So, this is kind of being a little elusive in terms of, there needs to be a line drawn in the sand. Who is the culprit and who are the victims? Clearly, on my side of the fence, there's a whole lot of victims, where on the other side of the fence is a whole lot of culprits. So, to what degree and for how long they remain as culprits, I don't know. Is that the plan here, people? Government can't do what it does unless somebody or something helps them. Fraser Health Authority couldn't medical kidnap Uncle John unless CIBC Bank helped them. CIBC Bank is just as culpable as Fraser Health Authority in the medical kidnapping of Uncle John, and it's the government's responsibility to protect the public from medical kidnapping by corrupt organizations and corporations. So where does the smart city fit in all that? Because clearly Uncle John was a victim to it. Because it's been in play. So is this new news or old news? Is this old news now just being regurgitated? rehashed with a bit of spin? I don't know. What are people afraid of? Those towers going up that are scaring away all the birds and the bees? Because I just don't see the Punjabis getting bent out of shape over this shit. I don't. If anything, they prosper from it. Right? Nothing holds them to account when it comes to the corruption that floods out tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people into homelessness and oblivion. And puts them at risk to be illegally harvested by crooks that are simply nothing more than body snatchers from the 1500s. Reincarnated.
Awesome.
They like dead bodies. That's why they keep coming back for them.
My house isn't better for me. Like, I can tell you that for nothing. So,
Like,
yeah,
I'm truly trying to understand this.
Global enslavement, using useful idiots in the councils. This has to be stopped. Like, I mean, I think if
it's scaring away bees and scaring away birds, then yeah, I would think so.
And he made the pertinent point that physical freedom is the ultimate hill to die on. And if you're not prepared to stand up against things like this, like, you essentially going to deserve what you get. But this is a hill I'm going to die on. I'm not being controlled and told what I can and can't buy.
Do you mind if we share this Reese report? I love Greg Reese because I did listen to Mark Passio.
But you see, that's the thing. As they come in here and they cut down all the walnut trees, all the raspberry tree bushes and the blackberry bushes, and, you know, cut down the apple trees, cut down the pear trees, cut down the peach trees, cut down any fucking tree that they can find. It doesn't matter as long as it's nut or fruit producing, just cut it down. Because once they cut it out, all down, there's nothing left to eat. Nothing left for the animals, and nothing for the people to, you know, find, right? It's not scavenging. There's another word for it. I can't think of it right now. Scourging. Something like that. So, you know, but who does that? The ones that own the houses and are building the properties and cutting, right? The city who thinks that they can do what they want by cutting down 50,000 trees within a so-called district, as they bulldoze down everything else to build buildings and then put ornamental trees on the outside to make it look like they're going to make it breathable in the future. When in fact we know that cities with a lot of buildings get pockets of no oxygen because of lack of trees. Yeah. But the trees that are being torn out here, like the food sources that are being torn out, it's not affecting that smart city over there with the Punjabis and their peacocks. No. To which the Punjabis might think that they have a false sense of security because, you know, they're doing as they always done. And they're not aware of the danger of what these guys are talking about on a grander scale. Or they really are part of the problem and have infiltrated our government so much so that this is their plan and they're just using everybody else around them to implement it, and that's why they think they're so safe and untouchable.
Those latest, I posted something over on the Phaser where he was talking about de facto Satanism, because the point that needs to be made now, and I make it time and time again with my guests, is that spiritual warfare is real. The battle between good and evil on this planet is real. The battle between Lucifer and the God of the Bible, Jesus Christ, is very real. And these people at the top of the pyramid, they hate Christians and they hate Christ.
This video is based on the work of Mark Passio from whatonearthishappening.com. Specifically, his recent video on de facto Satanism. Today's Hollywood pop culture machine will have you believe that Satanists wear robes and practice ritualistic blood sacrifices while worshiping Satan. And while there may be some truth to this, It is mostly propaganda meant to conceal the reality of what Satanism actually is. True Satanism is a mindset, and the Satan that is worshipped is within each and every one of us. It is most commonly known as our ego. The self is the true god of Satanism. The term Satanism is used to deceive religious people, to appear harmless to non-religious people, and also because...
Yeah, that's another thing. I called my government out on with their loose harvesting and being practicing Satanists. And when I had that online MS Team court thing, that Sonia too, representing the Attorney General's office, was going into her case law and was just rattling on about making it sound like it was me that she was talking about, when in fact she was making reference to somebody else's case that was trying to bring up Satanism and how the government, you know, practices sorcery, I guess you could say, against its constituency for all the wrong reasons. And therefore it somehow made me look mentally unstable, because as far as the government's concerned, there is no such thing as Satanism, even though they took it out of the Criminal Code of Canada in December of 2018. Right? Because it was written in there. Let's see. What is this? 2018. I don't know if it's in there. See? I'd have to look it up. But I have one from 2009. So I'll look in the one for 2009 and I'll find it. And I'll look in here, because they took it out in December of 2018. Because they knew they were coming in with their whatever it is. Right? But they don't even have the balls to admit it.
Because it stems from the Hebrew word shaitan, which means adversary. Satan is the force of involution that opposes true spiritual evolution. It is the ego within us. Left to our own devices, the ego will try and convince us to think only of ourselves.
That is so true, people. So true.
Which is exactly what Satanism is. And so, a de facto Satanist is a person who holds this mindset, but does not consider themselves to be a Satanist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pause it there. I'm going to come back to you. I want to say one thing about that I don't agree with. I don't think it's true to say that these satanic ritual sacrifices, these blood sacrifices, are propaganda, because we have
He took it to a whole new level there. He went from, like, for example, I'm going to just use Punjabis as an example. They don't believe in God in the way that most people, Christians, those kind of people, believe in God. Approach any Punjabi out in the street wearing a turban. Ask them if they believe in God, and they'll tell you that they don't. Ask them what the meaning of life is, and they'll say, you live, you work hard, you have a good life, and you die. And it's done. Question them on it, and they'll reconfirm that's how they feel about it. However, every now and then you come across other Punjabis who, like my landlord, seems to think that reincarnation is real. Because he figures we were family back in the day. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I do believe in old souls. So I guess I do believe in reincarnation to some degree, because when I'm hot under the collar, what do I say? I don't ever want to come back. I'm done. I'm done. Right? So, if you don't believe in God, and you're the ruling class in terms of an ethnic group, and you can only maintain on that wealth, or the opportunity to build on that wealth, via being basically ruthless to those around you in order to be able to progress, because that's ultimately what's happening out here in the housing market, right? You have to be ruthless to evict house after house after house after house over a whole block radius from block to block to block in order to be able to buy wealth, so that, or build wealth, gain wealth, money exchange, so that you can take that money and then go back to your gated community, which in this case would be Little India, and then spend that wealth within that as you branch out into another community to repeat the process, so you can take the proceeds that you reap from there back. So, right? So, and then with that, what happens is it builds ego. And people become important with the number of houses that they own. They become important as to how shiny their vehicle is when they drive up to check up on their tenants, or whatever it may be. I'm just saying. Right? Or how many times they can fly back to their country of origin and come back with something else. Right? And then that's just the surface scratching. That's not including the illegal activity, like the harvesting of organs. Okay? But to ask a Punjabi if they're Satanists, they would never admit to that. Oh no. Although they do have their gurus to fight off bad spirits or bad luck. Yeah. So I don't know where those spirits come from, or whatever it is that they're fighting off, being that they don't believe in a higher power and moving on to the next level, whatever that level may be, based on your character while on this earth, outside of working hard and having a good life. Anybody can work hard at being a body snatcher. Anybody can work hard at stealing organs and setting up murder so those organs can come in when needed. Okay? Anybody can work hard at covering up murder or medical kidnappings or all this other stuff that stimulates the underground economy so that those smart cities can thrive. Go into a Punjabi temple and not one person will admit that they're a Satanist, but yet many of them practice the behavior based on ego, the collective ego, to maintain on their wealth at the expense of sacrificing other people to get it. When you go from house to house to house to house and create mass homelessness, mass poverty, just so that pocket over there can prosper, there's nothing moral about it. There's nothing ethical about it. There's nothing godly or righteous about it. But yet go into a temple and each and every person within that temple will insist that they're ethical and they're moral, because for whatever reason being in that temple gives them the right that they are standing under their God, even though they'll straight up in your face tell you they don't believe in God. Like, I don't quite get it. Just saying.
Whistleblowers who have lived through satanic ritual abuse, unimaginable horror shows. So,
yeah, see, he took it to a whole different level, where I was thinking at a different level. Okay?
it is very real. It's not propaganda, but I do believe they are trying to debase society, Matt. They're trying to corrupt young minds, and thereby, by making young people nihilistic and godless, Satanists. Because when you don't believe in God and you don't love Christ, what's the alternative?
Yeah, this was an interesting little point on it when I watched it. I'd encourage people to watch that video fully, though. It's actually quite thought-provoking, or at least it was in me. And he essentially was making a point that through a combination of factors, the elites are actually essentially leading humanity into slavery. And he said essentially through selfishness, moral relativism. You can see that in the minor attracted person.
You see, though, the Punjabis, they don't see themselves as slaves, people. They see others as their slaves. And the ones that are enslaved within their ethnic group, when it comes to that caste system, the ones above, they justify it and say, oh, that was their lot in life. That's the way they were born. Leave them alone. I've heard it myself out here in fucking Canada. Hey, I'm like, well, we need to do something for the poor people in India, right? 20 million homeless children in India, right? Why can't, Canada's a rich country, why can't we try and do that missionary work, right? You know, to give back, to get those barrels of dehydrated food from Canada, from the Canadian farms, shipped out to India to help feed the people out there, especially the ones that need it, right? Oh, no, leave them alone. That's their lot in life. That's the way they were born. Focus on Canada. Yeah, okay. Focus on Canada. Many of them came from India with the, oh, I don't care attitude, leave them alone. That's their lot in life. To build wealth over here, and forgot what it meant to, I guess, be Indian. And then I seen that when I was looking after Gari. The community, the Indian community, abandoned Sarah and Gari. I'll never get it. No.
Debate, sort of social Darwinism and eugenics. These are kind of things we can see society trending towards. And he said through those.
Yeah, but what makes up a society when the society is so fractured? This is what this video is about. I'm trying to like make you understand, if you don't already. You know, the society is fractured. Are they building bike runs in Little India, or are they making more parks for the peacocks? Which one is it?
Those four pillars, essentially, humanity will become a slave race.
You go to Little India and you go to a park out there at a particular time, and it's like a social gathering with all the Punjabis out there. It's like a booked-in party that nobody talks about and just shows up at. Serious. That's how many people are running around in the park. All Punjabi.
Because once you believe in all those things.
Because fresh air is good for you. Helps to keep you healthy and strong, right? Living that good life. Right?
And that makes sense. And you know,
trust me, they're happy. There's no other place they want to be other than where they are. And if you come, they're like, okay, what's up? They're suspicious. Not all, but many are. If they don't know you, they don't trust you. Right? So, you know. And if you want to stick around and hang out for a while, to what cost, right? Like, what is it you have to do in order to fit in? As if you could ever fit in, people. As if you could ever fit in.
Christianity, almost any religion, and belief in a nuclear family, it works in the exact opposite direction. Right. So if the elites can convince you to be selfish, that, you know, like there's a moral relativism to like a minor attracted person, and if you can identify as a 12-year-old boy, then why can't you be attracted to a 12-year-old girl?
You know, I've been listening to all this crap about this. I don't know. I just think people have lost their nerve and just don't want to fight for morality and what's right. You know, like, I'll give you an example. Tisha is paying $600 a month. $600 a month to put a little AMA into kindergarten. Where? In a Catholic school, of all things. Why? To protect her from being teased in school, in public school, as well as she doesn't want Alea May being exposed to this curriculum that the Canadian government seems to think is okay when it comes to, you know, trying to make human beings asexual, right? Could be a boy, could be a girl, who knows? Could be a dog, could be a cat, doesn't really matter. Just, right? That's one thing. The other thing is if boys want to go into girls' bathrooms because they see themselves as girls, they can do that in the public school system. You know, they're always flying up their gay pride flag as if it's a country when in fact it is not. Right? They put the gay pride flag in between all the flags of countries to give the impression that it's its own country when in fact it is not. I've seen that in Chimay High School. You know, they bringing in their story time drag queen things. They're obnoxious teachers that look like they came from a Adam's Family horror movie with a complete distortion of what it means to be a woman, a respectable one at that. Just not to mention all the other problems that go on in the public school system. Tisha doesn't want anything to do with that, so she's paying $600 a month because Alea May is not Catholic. If Alea May was Catholic, then the fee would only be $300. And she asked me if she should sign, you know, designate Alea May as Catholic to get the discount, quote unquote. And I said, well, why would you do that? You're not Catholic. Don't force a religion on her. She's too little. She doesn't need to be growing up being told that she's a Catholic when she's not a Catholic. It's bad enough that you're having to put her in a Catholic school just to try and protect her from the public school. But yet at the same time, right, you know, she's having to pay more because she chose just to keep Alea May free. Because I told Tisha, I never forced religion on you. I never made you choose. I never told you you had to, right? I never tried to hide it from you. I gave you freedom to grow into your acceptance of who your creator is and what that is and what it means for you. And you will never be held hostage to it or controlled by it because it's a faith that has to come from within you. So she chose not to designate Alea May as Catholic and now pays $600 a month to put my granddaughter into kindergarten thinking she's going to save her from lewd behavior from our public union sector and their affiliates. And then I watch a video, I don't know if it was Laura Lynn or Liberty Talk News, but one of those ones out here my way was doing an interview with the Catholic youth that was a teenager that actually stood up to a boy that thought he could go into the Catholic girls' washroom and do his nasties in there while he was watching the girls. And because the boy came from a good stock, said, no, that's not right. And, right, ended up getting into whatever trouble. School suspended the boy with the morals so that the boy that's going around infringing on women's rights and privacy can go into the bathroom at a Catholic school at any time. And I'm thinking in my head, well, gee, Tisha, are you even aware that this is going on? This is what you're trying to prevent. So it's just, what, you're going to pay out $600 a month for years and years and years and then find out that they're still letting boys into the girls' washroom and that you were hoodwinked the whole time? But she feels she's going with the lesser of two evils. Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
You know, like, there are clear right and wrongs to me. Like, it's not morally relative. That's wrong.
The goal of the
Yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong for boys to go into girls' washrooms. Period. If you self-identify as a girl but you're a boy, then go see a psychiatrist. Seriously, if it bothers you that much. Otherwise, learn your boundaries. Everybody has boundaries.
world order is to...
And there's a lot of sickness in the world. And the sickness, you know what? The sickness shouldn't be the one controlling the show here, okay? Sierra was mentally ill with her drug addiction, trust me, okay? But with her bipolar shit and this and that and moodiness and, you know, her just antics or whatever it was, okay? That sickness played a big role in the detrimental health of my family. Because it kept us, when in fact it should never have been an issue. And now the damage is done. And you can never turn back the clock.
remove the barriers between right and wrong. It's to make...
My daughter will spend $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 to put Alea May in a Catholic school in order to be able to protect her from the corruption within the public school and the ungodly, insidious, lewd shit that goes on for an agenda that is clearly self-motivated from an adult's perspective that likes to exploit children. To only have Alea May be a teenager still at that Catholic school as her mother pays for it. To have some random boy just walk in and do whatever he wants and stay as long as he wants because he sees himself as a girl, even though he knows he's a boy. And nobody's going to do jack shit about it. And my daughter is going to spend 50 grand to find out that lesson. Yeah, okay.
Make everything gray, shades of gray. So whatever's right for you, do as that...
So that boy, out of a school of, we'll say, 800 in a Catholic school, controls the whole school with his sickness. How does that make sense, people? Because you have adults lurking in the background, plotting and scheming how they can get to the kids and use and abuse them and capitalize off them at a later date.
Now willed, right?
Yep.
So recently Paul Ehrlich, I believe that's his name, going off memory, was on 60 Minutes.
Oh. Police traffic children by not doing their job when they're required to do so.
He's an avowed eugenicist, and he said humanity is not sustainable. And that's not true. That's not true.
No.
Grow an apple tree in your backyard, friends. Grow it.
You can't. Because you got the property developer coming in, cutting everything down so that you can't have it.
A garden, okay? There is abundance that can be had on this planet. But they're trying to destroy that too, Matt, through geoengineering. So this is all contrived, in my view. All of it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, Paul Ehrlich's predicted 50 of the last 0 catastrophic disasters, hasn't he? He's just been completely wrong. And I think one of the, you've just literally hit on the point I was about to make, that you can actually create wealth by growing things. So, I mean, his large thing was that as you population grows, we'll run out of food. Well, no, we won't, because like the percentage of people that are born also become farmers and create
Okay,
food.
good. I heard
So
you.
you don't run out of things. You essentially do the exact opposite. Like you create more wealth with more people.
Yeah.
Because of the economies
Yeah,
of
well,
scale.
only selective kind
Yeah,
of people, though. You
this
see,
is
that's
exact-
the thing. That's where these smart cities become beneficial, because then it gives people the reason to justify, well, I'm within my 15 minutes. It doesn't matter if everybody in here is racist. We're all happy, one big, barrel of monkeys. And don't you dare come into our territory, because, it would be a price to pay on that one. So, I don't know. Is this fear porn? Or is it old news being rehashed with a bit of spin? Or are they truly concerned about what they're talking about, but maybe they don't have the experiences like me and how I see things and relate them to what's around me, to say that whatever agenda that they're talking about, we're already there. We've been there for a long time. And yeah, there are some losses in there in terms of, like, my landlady's not getting her $3 million on this house and it's not selling as fast. But I don't think she's in panic mode yet in terms of losing it all to Klaus Schwab's agenda, to which they're trying to say that that's what's going to happen at some point in the future. But personally, I don't see it happening anytime soon, because there's too much involved. And in relation especially to that underground economy. See, these guys, they all talk about the economy, but they never really ever, when do you ever hear them talk about the underground economy and what keeps things moving? Right? You don't.
Exactly how they do it. They're going to convince you right is wrong and wrong is right.
All right, so we're going to round out the conversation with 2023 predictions, and I guess these are Matt's predictions. I agree with the first one. The Great Awakening will start to become mainstream. I think we've already seen that. Klaus Schwab, you all know Harari, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the United Nations. Either they're going to get their Great
Who's
Reset, which
waking
they're
up
going to
here?
try for. They're all in. Or we get our Great Awakening. That's what it's down to. And by the way, I pray
And
to
what
God
does
that
that
does
mean?
the right thing. That would go a long way to helping us out.
This is what I see. I mean, you can see the general trend for the last 2 or 3 years now that I don't know. Are you meeting more and more people in bars that are just sort of like quietly murmuring things that you just never heard like 2, 3, 5 years ago? I am. I'm going into bars and people are talking about Rothschilds, the banking system. And like 10, 15 years ago, when we started like reporting on it, like literally nobody had heard of it.
Right.
But so more and more people are waking up, and that's just evident from people I meet. So that's great, and I think that trend is going to horrifically, Damar Hamlin. I mean, that's going to wake up the vaccine like skeptics like nothing else. So yeah, this is great news. More and more people. Soon it's going to sort of reach a. I mean, it's already at the Governor DeSantis level, isn't it now?
Yeah.
I mean, before it was just us lot on social media and audiences like that, but now it's like DeSantis is outright questioning the Pfizer.
Well,
Like,
you know what? And so are other beautiful researchers and reporters, real journalists like Laura Logan. I have her coming on Friday, and she
great.
is a beacon of light in this otherwise very dark world. So we'll continue here. Economic collapse. I think that is coming because they want to introduce UBI. And if people accept UBI and CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, it's game over. You'll be on their plantation forever, and that's what they want. So gold and silver should rise in value.
You see, I listen to this stuff, and just knowing what I know, people, right? When they sold Shimei's organs, how did they facilitate the payment? Something moving? I get all these pictures I go to upload this, I can see a little square in there. It's focusing on my face. I'm going to have 100 pictures, and I have to delete them all. Ugh. I don't know how. I tried to change the settings on this camera, and I can't figure it out. Oh my god. Okay, what was I saying? They're making it sound like even the Punjabis are going to be hooked up to digital currency, to the restriction of nothing more, nothing less than doing everything on your cell phone. And I don't even use cell phones. So I don't know how they're going to get to everybody, because they can't force a cell phone on me. And if they think they're going to fucking chip me, trust me, I will go down swinging. Okay? I don't care. I'll go down swinging. I'm already plotting and scheming how I can escape from the hospital if I should get sick. Okay? How are they going to launder their dirty money? Because they're already laundering it. You see, that's the thing. It's not suitcases full of money being passed under the gurney as organs are being auctioned off here, or bodysuits, or teeth. But this money is being transferred somehow, some way. And if the government's quote unquote quote are bringing in digital currency for the sole purpose of nothing more than controlling the whole population and not just a percentage of the population, how do these crooks expect to make money off of dead body parts and anything else that they traffic illegally and get paid for it through a third-party currency that's being diverted away from the legitimate bookkeeping of consumer transactions, right? What are you doing over there? You're making Nana nervous. You're being too quiet. I can kind of hear you. So, like, how does that affect the Punjabis? Are they going to be using chickpeas as currency? Just using that as an example, right? What, are they going to allow the government to make everything digital? And if so, why? Why are you so apt to allow it to happen if it somehow doesn't benefit you in a roundabout way in the past? Right?
We know that these central banks are buying gold hand over fist, Matt, and we're also seeing silver do a nice bounce. Now, it's still kneecapped by the Wall Street manipulators. We know that. But there's a run on the COMEX. Silver's gone from 17.18 up to 23.24. It should be over 50. Frankly, it should be over 500, and I think someday it will be, unless they get their CBDCs, unless they get their UBI. If that's the case, they'll kneecap gold and silver forever.
Yeah, they're certainly going to try up to a certain point, but typically if frauds just end, there'll come a point where you just can't go on any further, and I suspect printing how much have they printed in the last few years to cover COVID? We should have hyperinflation now, yeah. But this is coming, and once the fraud's over, people aren't going to run to treasuries to save them. You're going to get 7-8 billion people who look for that amount of mined gold and silver. Yeah. And once that happens, it's off to the races.
To that end, I want to give a call to action for anybody who wants to stack some physical silver or gold at the best prices and get free shipping on any order over $100. Go to sdbullion.com. They support SGT Report. There's a banner right at the top of SGT Report for that great company. I'll try to remember to leave a link below. You guys should go there. Stack a little silver. It's very satisfying. And they're a great team, great guys over there at SD Bullion. Climate lockdowns and more propaganda, that's what's coming in 2023. And my friend Matt and I will be there to break it all down every single day. Matt, I want to thank you for your time today, and thanks for this wonderful news outline.
No, my pleasure.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, Matt. And friends, I want to thank you all for tuning in. I'll direct...
So, the Punjabis aren't too concerned about climbing lockdowns because they already have their park. They already have their parks with their peacocks within their so-called 15-minute city. Right? That's protected by the rules so that nobody else can infringe on them. And whatever goes on in the community over there is insignificant because that's their problems. Right? They were born into that lot. So, right? So, it just, the way society works, doesn't matter the ethnic heritage in terms of those in control and those who are not. I don't know. I'm getting tired here. That's what's happening. I'm crashing. Thinking about this stuff is draining for me sometimes. Because I know to some degree it's real. And it's not anything that I want for my family. Right? And I'm just wondering how there can be such a divide to where what these guys were saying, there's a lot of truth to it because it's already here. It's already been in operation for years. It's just expanding out, as just like those food deserts are expanding out. But at the end of the day, there's still going to be pockets within society that will prosper and thrive because of what's going on. And no matter what governments say in terms of how they rationalize why they're doing something in terms of this digital currency and all this other crap to prevent crime, to prevent terrorism, to prevent this, prevent that. No, people, they're not going to prevent anything. They're just going to tweak and master their ability to continue to harvest human beings at their whim when they want to, and they will use other ethnic groups to facilitate in partnership with to carry on with the status quo. These guys, they don't talk about that kind of stuff. Why they don't, I don't know. I know why. Because it makes you sound like you're a racist because you're talking about the Punjabis. That's taboo. Don't talk about the Punjabis. No. You might hurt their feelings. They have no backbone, remember? They can't handle constructive criticism. You get my point.